My name is Daniel, I'm a teacher.
Katie, I'm a web developer.
James, web developer.
Tyler.
Web developer. I'm Paul, I'm a public policy graduate student.
Graham, aspiring web developer.
My name is Eileen, and I'm a developer.
My name is Harley, and I work in development in the Shriver Center.
I'm Matt, I'm a software engineer at Amazon.
Well, I'm a web developer.
Carmen, I'm an analyst in investment information.
My name is Jim, I'm a web developer. Dan, web developer, recent DVC grad.
I'm Sean, I'm a developer.
I'm a senior advancement. I'm a student at the Military Academy and here with the challenge.
I'm a student, my name's Louis, and I'm a student at Moore Street College Prep, and I'm with MLC.
Crystal Van Segra, student at Maine Tech, and work with the challenge. Okay, I'm Laura Saldi, I work in content marketing.
Hi, I'm Daniel, I'm a neuroscientist.
Eric,
Steve, he's program development.
Thomas, I'm a GIS analyst. Dave Shin, I work as an application analyst for the city of Evanston.
I'm Tracy, I started. I'm Judy, I'm a computer interaction student at the University, and I'm also the web design
I'm Andy, I'm from the computer science department at Chicago Public Schools.
I'm Magda, I work health and medicine policy research.
Hello, I'm Eda, I'm a web design specialist. I'm Eric, I'm a programmer at Jump.
Paul, I'm a web developer.
I'm Lisa, I'm the Neighborhood Youth Commission Director at Bigfoot Challenge, and the young people back here today are here to just observe this community and space and see like how we can ensure that it's more friendly.
Okay, so hi, my name is Shifa. I'm from Mather High School, and I'm also a
I'm Joe Barley. I'm the president team. I'm Carol.
My name is India. I'm a musician.
My name is Scott Lowe, I'm a web developer at Leatherbricks.
I'm Sanju, and I'm a city planner and a developer.
My name is Elizabeth, and I go to Chicago State Academy.
Hi, my name is Daniel. I go to House
My name is Oscar, and I go to Solar Academy. I'm here with
My name is Rosa. I go to Solar Academy.
I'm Anne. I'm a city planning degree, and I work for Heartland Housing, which is a company in Heartland.
Cool. We miss anybody who just came in?
My name is Dennis, I'm a graduate assistant at the University of Chicago.
I'm Sam, a data scientist.
All right, anybody else? Awesome. So now we're going to move on to announcements. The first off is from Derek and I. We are about to hit episode 200 of Shy Hack Night. As hard as it is to believe, we've been doing this for every Tuesday for almost 4 years, which is kind of crazy. So to celebrate, we're going to do speeches and blog posts and cookies. But for the speeches and the blog posts, we need y'all's help with. We're having a call for lightning talks. That's a talk that's 2 minutes or less. Slides are mandatory. The way these lightning talks usually work is they could be a night talk style where, you know, the slide moves every 5 seconds, or you can just do a talk for 2 minutes. So if you go to the blog post, or if you go to the Hack Night blog, this first entry is the call for speakers. If you can fill out this form if you're interested in submitting a lightning talk. We are also taking in blog posts. You can share your Hack Night story. Posts can be as long as or short as you want. We especially want to hear from people who haven't contributed before. What we'll do is on episode 200, we'll highlight all these posts. We'll tweet about it. We'll tell your friends to tweet about it. If you're interested in submitting a blog post, please do by Thursday, April 7th, and you can do so by submitting the blog post here. If you have any questions, you can email Derek by clicking the link. Next announcements. Are there any other announcements other than events or job posts before we get going? Going once? Okay. Events that are coming up. Flourish 2016. Is anybody here for that? So Flourish 2016 is an open source conference hosted by ACM. If you're interested in learning more, you can go to flourishconf.com. I don't actually know. It does not say. I'll never know. Is anybody here for Democracy Spring? Okay. So there's a group that's put together an umbrella organization of probably like 100 different sponsoring organizations to try to use this moment when we're all a little unhappy with our democracy, try and push through changes to the way that our campaigns are financed. So starting on Saturday, my partner and I are going to be joining a 144-mile 10-day walk from the Liberty Bell to Capitol, and there's 150 people so far on that march, doing the whole march, but more people are joining all the way. In Washington, 3,000 people have signed up to risk arrest. There's 4 pieces of legislation sitting in Congress. One of them, Dick Durbin, our own Dick Durbin, is co-sponsored to allow publicly funded Congress representative and Senate elections. And so the plan is 3,000 people have said they're willing to sit there in Congress facing arrest until Congress passes these very reasonable pieces of legislation. So follow it, promote it, keep your eyes open. Cool. Is there anybody here for Shy Ladies Hack? Okay. The first Shy Ladies Hack, hackathon organized by Chicago's Women in Tech Groups, is happening April 2nd. If you're interested, you can go to, where'd it go? shyladies-hack.eventbrite.com for more information. They're also looking for mentors. Is there anybody here for map time? Nope. So map time will meet here Tuesday, April 5th. They'll split their presentation into 2 parts. Emily and Stephen will discuss and lead you through games and practical exercises to understand map projections in different ways. Cook County Technology Outlook.
All right. So, raise your hand if you know what a procurement is. All right. A lot of hands are in the room. Procurements are how governments go about getting technology stuff done that we can't do ourselves. If you want to know what kind of technology stuff we can't do ourselves that you might be able to help us with, come to this event. It's at 1:30. It is somewhere in the Cook County Health and Hospital Complex. Check it out.
Cool. Job time. Is anybody here from the Tribune? Nope. Okay. So the Chicago Tribune has a data visualization team that they have to help bring their articles to life using data. If you're interested, you can email jeffhing@gmail.com for questions. The state of Illinois is also hiring a data team. They did not have a data team before, and so they're starting from scratch, and so they're hiring 7 people all at once. So if you're interested in working for the state of Illinois, click here. Is anybody, I don't know. It's a good question though. Is anybody here from the Impact Lab? No? So they're hiring an associate consultant. Anybody here from Presence Health? Nope. They're hiring analytics summer interns. City of Evanston?
Hey guys, first timer. So the city of Evanston is starting a brand new department, kind of in the same vein as the city of Chicago and Cook County. Starting kind of like a data analytics team, it's a digital services team. And currently there's only 3 people on the team so far, and the third position is actually what you've seen before, digital services specialist. And a lot of it has to do with our open data portal, which we're replacing vendor, and we're also hosting our city website, so there's gonna be a lot of work on that. And also we're revamping our 3-1 system. So let me know, my name is James.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any other job postings they'd like to announce? Going once. Nope. All right, so we're into our presentation. As you can see, we have presentation notes, so if you want to help us take notes, we'd really appreciate that. We will have question and answer sessions after their presentation. Please remember that it's a question and answer session, not a question, answer, and commentary. And so if you go too long without getting to a question, I will start doing this, and that's your signal to cool it and let someone else ask a question. And with that, Heartland helps, or Heartland Alliance.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Amy, this is Patricio, and we're with Heartland Alliance for Human Needs and Human Rights. And we are here to tell you a little bit about, well, I guess in the spirit of Shy Hack Night, we're here to help you understand your city better. And one part of your city is one of the kind of largest and oldest social service organizations in the city. And that's us, Heartland Alliance for Human Needs and Human Rights. How many people, by a quick show of hands, before tonight knew of Heartland, had heard of us? Nice. How many of those folks could tell the person next to them what we do? There's the problem, right? That is the problem. And so Patricio and I want to tell you about an effort that we have going at Heartland that, whether willingly or not, the 2 of us are somewhat involved in spearheading a little bit at this point, to help change that problem, the hand-raising problem that we just saw. And part of it is about helping us really, truly transform into an organization that is characterized by being highly innovative and highly effective, and becoming a laboratory of learning about the most effective anti-poverty interventions out there. So if we do that, we're going to have this host of other things happening, but one of the other things that's going to happen is that in a room full of people like this, hopefully every single person would raise their hand and be able to say, we know what Heartland's doing. They're doing all of these amazing things to end poverty, and you'd be able to tell your neighbor about that. So we're going to tell you a little bit about that effort. And to start, I think it's a little helpful actually to start with a little bit of a history lesson, like a Heartland history lesson, a Chicago history lesson. And really, because Heartland was established back in the late 1800s, so in 1888, and we were established as the nation's second Travelers and Immigrants Aid Organization. So you see people nodding, you kind of recognize that name. And really, we were founded out of the settlement house movement. So if you remember back, you might have gone on a field trip to the Hull House if you grew up here over on Halstead. Jane Addams founded the Hull House and was the leader of the settlement house movement. She was one of our founders at Heartland Alliance as well. Now, we've grown a lot over the 20th century, that's for sure, and we've changed a lot. Interesting fact, though, we still run our Travelers Aid program. If you've been at O'Hare Airport and you see those information kiosks, that's Heartland's Travelers Aid program. So that's our legacy program. So if you need assistance at the airport, we are there still shepherding travelers and immigrants and refugees and people who come through O'Hare Airport and helping them navigate transportation and more broadly the city. So I was in Barcelona last year. Patricio's going there next month. So I started to think that in many respects, Heartland is a little bit like Gaudi's Sagrada Familia. We have been under construction for 100 years, for a century. We still have cranes up. We are constantly adding, we are constantly refining, we are adding detail, we're shaping. And so we become this kind of constant under construction entity. And this is not entirely, not at all unique to Heartland. A lot of people in a lot of organizations in the social service structure are kind of this exact same way. And some really good examples of how we've done this over the years. You know, we were kind of the first organization in Chicago to respond to the homeless crisis in the 80s, when that became kind of a prevailing and very recognizable social problem. We helped found the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless, which you might be familiar with. We were the first place in the city to open up a homeless youth shelter when we realized that the face of homelessness was changing, and that it wasn't the single man on the street that everybody might have thought it was. We led the effort to relocate 7,000 Hurricane Katrina evacuees to Chicago. We put 27,000 people back to work through the country's largest jobs program during the recession. We were the first responders in the city to the HIV/AIDS crisis. So as social problems have evolved and emerged, so too has Heartland, so too has the rest of our kind of social service industry. But if I'm really honest, I think it's a little bit grandiose to compare Heartland to a beautiful, well-planned and thought-out cathedral. Does anybody recognize this picture? Yeah. City Museum in St. Louis. If you have not been there, you absolutely have to go there. It is amazing. But really what it is, oh, sorry, that got really grainy blown up. It doesn't matter because it still kind of looks like that even when it's crystal clear. It is just this amazing maze of reused and recycled objects and things kind of put together in these amazingly unique ways, fit together crazily to make this really interesting maze and jungle gym for adults, really. And you can kind of climb through there, but it's all just individual pieces that are pushed together to make this whole that actually works. And that's really interesting, but that doesn't necessarily have kind of one cohesive, identifying visual, or it doesn't look like any one thing. It's a hodgepodge, really. And that again is really indicative of kind of our industry. We are an industry that to some degree is at the whim and fancy of funders. So there's no way for us to just basically get a large sum of money to do whatever we would like with. We get money to do something very specific with a very specific population. So that's why we end up looking like this. We cobble it all together. And to add on to that complexity, think about data in that context. Think about the information and data that we're collecting in that context. For years and years and years, decades, our industry and at Heartland, we were thought of as charity. In many respects, people still think of the work of our sector as charity. And so when you're a charity and you have this, what do you do data-wise? You kind of just count things. How many slides do we have? How many airplanes do we have? And in real terms, how many people do we serve? What services do we provide? That's really, if you are only giving money as a funder, and you're only providing services to be charitable, what more do you really care about? But there's a fundamental shift going on at Heartland and in our field that is a recognition that we're not doing charity, we're doing human rights work, we're doing social justice work, and we're working for racial and social equity. And if that's the case, then we have a moral obligation to make sure that we're doing the most effective work possible. And that means we're going to have to collect some better data. We cannot just be counting widgets. We have to be assessing our outcomes and our impact in a much more meaningful way. And then taking that information, reflecting on it, teasing apart what it's telling us and then changing the work we're doing based on it. So we need to stop doing the things that just aren't effective. I'm sure that any of the nonprofits in this room, us included, are doing things that really aren't that effective. We need to stop doing them. But we need to first figure out what they are. And then we need to do more of what works. And so we need to be testing great new innovative ideas to ending and addressing poverty. But we need to have an infrastructure in place to do it. And that gets hard because we have, at Heartland, we are 5 different legal entities. And these are our legal entities. Heartland Alliance is the parent company, and our research department and Patricio's IT department sit in that parent company, the Alliance. And other shared services are there, like accounting and human resources, marketing, and that sort of thing. And then each of these individual companies is its own 501c3. So they each have their own board of directors, have their own budgeting process, and all of the things that comes with being your own 501c3. And you can see by the names listed up here in the different logos that we do really diverse work. Really, really diverse work. We have a whole international arm of the organization that works on gender and sexual equity issues, workers' rights issues in Central America, Africa, the Middle East. We have our Heartland Health Outreach, which is providing all sorts of different health care, primarily to people who are experiencing homelessness. We have our housing division, which we have a colleague in the back who can tell you all about it, but in short, they they build and maintain affordable housing in the city, well, in the Midwest, really. And then Heartland Human Care Services does almost anything else you can think of. So this is stuff all the way from alternatives to juvenile detention, asset building, jobs programs, HIV prevention, all sorts of different things in that bucket. So the work that we do, layered on top of our organizational complexity, is kind of mind-bogglingly crazy to wrap your head around. Do I want to say anything more about that? I could go on and on about it.
You could go on the mind-boggling aspects of that experience. So what are we actually trying to do here? Our North Star is to transform Heartland Alliance to a point where we have the ability and organizational capacity for evidence-based programming, so knowing what works, data-informed decision, understanding what we need to stop doing and what we need to do more of, and an opportunity to tell that story to everybody, right? Is there a special sauce underneath our alliance that we can identify what mix of services actually are the best mix of services to bring people out of poverty? And we think that measuring outputs is not the way to do that. Measuring outcomes is, and stacking those outcomes together to understand how we're impacting communities, right? So if this is our North Star, we need to figure out how to get there, right? So what we think is a key to this is data systems. As Amy mentioned, with that hodgepodge, those 5 entities, those funders, data is distributed across hundreds of data systems and in formats and in a posture that's primarily focused on collecting outputs, right? So what we're looking to do is develop develop a combination of people, process, and technology, everybody's 3 favorite words probably in this room, to support the organizational data capabilities and usage. So when you look at this, this is the ideal state, right? We have a data dictionary that's defining the data that we're collecting. We have our data sources on the left, right? Data is moving through our ETL layer into a data warehouse, into that visualization layer, and we learn. This is what we want to do. And this is what we're hoping. I think that this diagram is probably common or probably could be used in many different instances, although maybe not with the Heartland Alliance color branding. But this is the ideal state, right? But even if this diagram is common, we do have our own unique challenges. And those unique challenges are that almost none of it exists at Heartland Alliance. So if you look at this, data flow, knowledge flow, not really working too well, and a lot of vaporware up there. But so underneath those 5 organizations, we have somewhere upwards of 110 programs. Those 110 programs have their 110 funders plus, right? So all of that data collection is happening for them. And we also don't necessarily have a system of record for some of those programs. Excel, Access, PDF files, these types of things, right? So they're not systems. And in addition to that, we have the challenge of operating in 5 different industries, right? So the services that we provide range from law firms to property developers to healthcare providers. How do you find a single system or a data system of record for all of those organizations, right? And lastly, this data infrastructure, BI infrastructure, just doesn't exist at all. So this is the challenge that we're facing and that we're trying to work through right now. So where are we at? Right now we're making a map. This is Middle Earth. We could have used Westeros, but I think you get the point here. We're trying to get a sense and get our bearings of where and how to approach this challenge, right? But we do think that it's a worthy endeavor, even if you look back at that other slide and see that there's so much work to do. Because of the breadth of our services, we feel like we have a unique data opportunity to uncover something and truly innovate in the industry that we're in, right? So we think that moving from outputs to outcomes is going to be something that we're going to be able to do. We think that those outcomes combined together are going to be able to show how we are impacting communities. We also think that we'll be able to uncover the mix of services that will move the needle the most for ending poverty. And we think that our data systems will allow us to actually connect people more quickly to move them through those services. So we think we have a unique opportunity given that breadth of service. So the things that are keeping us up at night right now, or the key questions as we try to start moving through this process, is just really, what can we learn from other industries that are maybe further along in the innovation and learning aspects of their maturation? Are our challenges actually different or the same than those industries, right? And what can we do now, because we know that vaporware is going to take a long time to build? What can we do with the data sets that we have right now to begin and to jumpstart that innovation and understanding and learning? What opportunities do we have? What tools are already out there that are available for us? And then lastly, when is enough on the planning, and when can we just start doing? So, you know, this is a little bit of a tour and understanding of what we're working on right now and how we're trying to build an innovation center at Heartland Alliance.
I think it was mostly just therapy for you and me.
Is that right? I think we needed somebody to share this with.
Yeah.
It was a lot, but
we'd love to hear your comments, your questions, side remarks, whatever you have to offer up. Yes.
How much of the data that you're looking at is really specific to your organization? How much of it would be useful for a larger population?
That's a good question. So all of it, I would say, the vast majority of it is specific to our programs and our participants. Now that said, we have explored and talked a lot about long-term vision of, once we get that data warehouse in place, of being a place where other researchers could come, people who have data analyst skills, and say, hey, can I get some de-identified data here, and let me see what I can learn from it. Let me see what relationships I can find. Let me see, you know, what predictive analysis I can run on this. So that's a big vision. That's really what we hope to be, is kind of a center that's not just internally focused, but that's externally focused for the field.
Yes.
Since you have 4 or 5 501c3s, is it 4 or 5?
5.
It's 5.
Okay.
Yep.
And so they all target different subjects or themes, and then they all have their own board of directors. And so, how do you, or how will you, and maybe you haven't thought about this yet, but it's very interesting. How will you get all the stakeholders on board to track the same data, and how will you work together on that? Because you also work in 4 to 5 continents, so I don't know. So it's very challenging. And are you going to create another department, IT, or section?
Your question is like giving me a heart attack.
That's right.
I can't answer. But those are precisely the things that we're dealing with. And when we say map making, we're trying to figure out exactly how to approach what you're saying. One element that I can speak to specifically is that what we know we're going to have to do is short of working on technology at all, we need to develop a robust and comprehensive results framework for the organization, so that every single intervention that we do, we have, drawn the line in the sand and said, here's the outcomes we're looking to achieve, and then building out from there what needs to change. So it's going to have a ripple effect into things like all of the paper forms that we fill out with our participants, the data, obviously the data systems that we have. We need to negotiate so many different pieces that we don't even probably at this point know what we are. You've caught us at a very early moment in this process. Literally what we told you is where we're at. And so we are just starting to plan for doing some of this work in our upcoming fiscal year, which would start in July.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hitting it right on the head. I think there's program interesting data that they need to be collecting for their funders. There's company interesting data that they need to be collecting to understand how they're functioning. There's alliance interesting. There's industry interesting. How do you wrap that all up into one framework that your data systems are collecting all? I think that's our biggest challenge that we're facing right now. I think the technology is likely not the biggest challenge. It's the change exercise of taking that many, 110 programs that have been operating the way that they've been operating for a while, and changing them and pointing them in a singular direction is a monumental effort, yes.
I'll just add, we have a meeting next week with a bunch of leadership from throughout all of the companies. So you guys almost got a preview before they did of what we're going to be talking to them about.
They're probably watching right now.
Yeah. It's live streaming.
Yeah.
Yes, you.
Yeah. What do you think? You're talking about you're trying to manage your scope in the beginning, and particularly how it impacts on your business, but your decision making. So one of the questions I have, perhaps for you, is what do you think the most, maybe some of the most top outcomes that you'd like to be monitoring for are in maybe just one part of your business? And how much of what you do today do you think is what you think you should be doing? And when you actually find the data, you're wrong. I work in a company that works with a lot of data. There's always this legacy process, and there's always personalities involved. Everyone has ideas of what they should do, and then when they actually look at the real data, they realize, wow, that is factor, but it's only 5%, or it's only 30%. So I thought that might be helpful for the conversation.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, because when I mention our funders, I don't think I'm exaggerating how much they drive the work of our sector. Dictate might be a better word, and people who work in the nonprofit space, you know what I'm talking about. So part of this is a really long-term vision for being able to actually start to change that conversation with funders. So if we can build an evidence base in our own organization for what works, and an evidence base for what doesn't, we can be an entity that changes the conversation in the field, which is ultimately what it's going to take. It's going to take more than Heartland doing that. Certainly, it's going to take a lot more people. But we need to get to a place where instead of being, jumping when the funder says jump, that we say to the funder, here's how to tell us all to jump. And so that's really the hope. So I guess, we'll be limited in our ability to really change a lot at first, but I think really long term, that's where we're hoping to go.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, I know for-profit companies often have people whose job it is to look at things that you are not doing, that other people are doing, and maybe if you're big enough, you acquire them. That's really cool. I just thought when you said oh, we've been working on the problem of homelessness since the 80s. Homelessness is still here. You guys have not fixed it, unfortunately. And so, but there are things that fix it these days, such as giving people housing.
A house, imagine that.
Home first, or whatever it's called, right? So this is a relatively new thing. And do you have people who's a large part of their job to identify this stuff that's working that you guys are not doing? Yeah.
Director of research. No, and a lot of it is about surfacing, best practices and evidence base, and the new and emerging promising practices in the field. And we do that absolutely. Again, if there was a funder out there who's giving you a big bunch of money to do whatever we would like with, those types of things would be a lot easier to do. You have to wait until a funder kind of gets the idea and develops the funding stream for it to do it. So Housing First, is a good example of that. We're still, as a homeless system, we have a shelter model. Shelters do not end homelessness. They put a roof over someone's head for the night. So we know what works in a lot of these ways. We just don't do enough of the thing that's actually getting to the root cause of the problem, right? Absolutely right. Okay. Go, you, Sam.
Yeah, you said you had 111 programs. I'm wondering how many of the same people, customers or clients, are accessing each of those, or many of those, multiples of those programs.
We don't know.
Sure.
Are you looking at finding out?
Yes. So that is another huge vision.
That's probably one of the first questions we'd answer.
Yes.
Or try to answer with this exercise.
Because we have all of these programs, but we have no internal way to link them up to different programs. There's eligibility considerations and the like, but that's something we think we could answer with some of our existing data that we have already. If we called it, cleaned it, matched it, we could try to figure out what some of that overlap is. Dan?
I thank you for the help you've given us. Are you doing anything with concept mapping to map the organization and how people are connected with each other within the organization?
You guys are thinking about it. It's like a Jason.
Concept maps like Kumu or systems thinking, the visual mapping of the organization?
There's some program directory discussions of how we would link that together in terms of overlap in services that are being provided or funders that are overlapping from a pass-through perspective, or how far back does that funding source roll through, or areas where it's most likely that a participant would actually be receiving multiple services. So that exercise is started, but we haven't moved very far along that process. But I'd be interested to hear more about what tools that would be available to help us in that. Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
So are you expecting to get to the ideal state with the team you have currently, or are you expecting maybe you'll take this to leadership and then put together like hire in, or what does it mean?
We're looking to hire. We, to the question earlier, research and development teams, or the ability to singularly focus on any sort of area, is something that we don't really have. It's not really something that's available to us in the nonprofit sector. We do have a lot of jack of all trades, or people pulling weight, let's call it. So we know we need to scale, both on the data scientist side, but also the BI support side, the development side, the ETL side, all of this stuff. So we're looking at that as a heavy investment. So we're working on that proposal right now.
Thanks. I think it's a very exciting idea that if you guys get a research base and you have a clear story that you can tell funders based on a solid research base, that you're going to be able to dampen some of the fickleness of funders as they move through program officers. Do you guys have there's a vision that I think I've heard other people articulate as well. Are there case studies of organizations that have done that and who really have changed their relationship with funders?
It's a great question.
Yeah, I wonder if anyone in the field is quite that far along. One of the things on our to-do list is to go out and visit some organizations that have gone through kind of a technology change like the one we're thinking of. I think all of the ones that we're thinking of going out and visiting are so much smaller than Heartland. They could all seem so much easier at some single issue organizations and the like. So I think that's going to be actually a really interesting question to start probing with some of these organizations that we're going to be talking with, is if and how this has been impacting their funding conversations.
Certainly the endeavors have made their operational day-to-day function better. They're able to reach more people or do it at a lower cost and those kinds of things. But actually influencing funders, I think, is that last piece that I don't know that we've seen that yet. Sure.
Nonprofits often collect
find information on sensitive topics that clients might not want to disclose, for example, having suffered domestic violence. How do you deal with how the sensitive nature of your work can make data less reliable?
So that's a great question. A lot of the data that's already being collected, not for the use, for the purposes of this exercise, right, is being, we have a business associate agreement with the groups that we're storing it with, or how we're collecting it. We're HIPAA regulated, so we do take security, privacy, all of that very serious. We haven't necessarily gone to that next level for the research or the IRB review process or those types of things. I know you probably have a little bit more experience with that, but we do take the data collection process very seriously.
And you're talking about how it might be not as reliable of data.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're not remotely there yet. Yeah. So I think that's something that when we talk about data governance is going to be kind of top of mind. We will be able to fix some of the unreliability through really awesome training of our staff and very clear expectations around what's entered and how we calculate things and the like. But that's going to be one of those things that's probably an ongoing issue. I can't imagine the day when, sensitive information like that is the most highly reliable data in the world. But again, just another one of these considerations you guys are going to pile on us so we don't sleep tonight. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I may have missed this because I was trying to tweet out some of your stuff, but being so funder driven as nonprofits tend to be, how did you carve out the space and the breathing time and the resources to fund this effort?
Many late nights. I don't know that we have just quite yet. I mean, I think we're in the proposal stage. We're working with the board of directors to see if there's specific solicitations that we can help fund this project. I think we may have open questions about how we do that long term. That's the reality that we're facing. I don't know that we've answered that question just quite yet.
Have you had any questions from funders where they kind of want to know about the effects of certain things? I mean, did that kind of drive this push at all?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, funders more and more are coming to the realization that they should be asking about your outcomes and your impact, and not just how many people you served. So as a field, I think that human services are moving in more of this direction, and part of it is funder driven. And we're pretty good, I think, at Heartland of when we get a new grant, putting some processes in place to collect the requisite information. But we are not good at thinking more broadly about what we should be collecting beyond what the funder wants us to collect. So we're meeting those needs. It's not like they say to us, what were your outcomes? And we're like, what's an outcome? We don't, we're not like that, but we're not doing it in an organized and planful and systematic way across the organization. We'll go there and then back there.
To that point, what are some systems you guys have developed to kind of follow up with people that you have served, like long term? How might that look?
That is definitely a case-by-case basis. So my department at Heartland, we do evaluation and research studies outside of kind of this whole data mess. So let's say one of Heartland programs comes to us and says, hey, can you help us out? We have this grant. We need to do an evaluation of this program, and we need to follow up with participants. We kind of put some processes in place to do that. But by and large, we're not following up with participants after they leave for services. Part of it's that often there's no distinct endpoint. So people leave and just don't come back. And so it's not like there was this really clear-cut moment of termination of services. So that makes it really hard sometimes to understand when you consider them gone. And another is, people come to us at their most vulnerable moments. And sometimes they want to be done with us, not because we were awful and we might have been amazing, but do you really want to be reminded of that time when you were really down on your luck and couldn't feed your family? Probably not. And so there's a dignity aspect to having people call you every 6 months and be like, hey, tell me how you're doing. I would like to know if I helped you. So there's a whole lot of play there, but it's definitely not happening much for many reasons. And then I promise you in the back.
About how many full-time equivalents do you have?
1,200? Is that right?
1,200, 1,600 workforce, probably, something like that.
And then the two areas that you have, technology and the research, how many people are doing that? Besides the two of you.
I
on my team.
have 13, and that's to manage everything.
Oh,
Infrastructure,
not this.
right? Not this.
I think we have time for one more question.
All right, who wants it?
Have you looked at maybe talking to the United Nations? They're, you know, they seem to have a similar structure where they have their UNICEF, IOM, and they have specific areas of work. And they could be struggling with the same problem, and they might be trying to solve it at this moment along with you. And then there's ATF, which is a governmental organization inside the federal government that does tech work, and they might just be working on this type of problem with a specific stakeholder. So it might be good, you know, to draw the line to those organizations.
That's great, thank you. You know, the other thing that when you were saying that made me think of was, to some degree, Heartland Alliance is a lot like a university. This big kind of overarching entity with these individual colleges in it, and so there might be some lessons learned too from some universities. Thank you.
And if people want to help out, where should they go?
So, oh, we didn't put our emails up there. We'll send our emails.
Well, I have cards. No,
yeah, we have
we'll
We
send
can
our
put them in the agenda notes.
We'll call you.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, we'll type them in.
All right. Thank you.
Put it in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's real time.
Can you do yours?
Got it.
All right, so now we're going to get to the hacking portion of the evening. The way this will work is we have different breakout groups. We'll go through them one by one. They'll tell you where they'll be at, and if you're interested in that, you can head on that way. If you find that none of these breakout groups are interesting, after we run through them all, you can propose more breakout groups. So how many people are here for the very first time? Yay, new people! So if this is your first time, we have an orientation session in the boardroom in 111 North Canal. It's a 15-minute talk that goes over what is open data, what is open source, and the importance of community organizing in our work. And that's right over there. Next is Code Clinic. Awesome. Mob programming.
Mob programming. All right. If learning to code is like playing a video game, then mob programming is like multiplayer, cooperative, where everybody uses each other's power-ups. And that's how you defeat all the bosses. So, So mob programming as a format, it's a great way to work on projects with the team and kind of use each other's skills and great ideas. Here, as a learning group, what we do is we grab a room, we have a collection of people. Usually we pick a tool of something that we want to be using, but then the group all works together and they say, hey, let's grab this type of data set that we're all interested in. And let's figure out how to load that in. Start to examine its properties, start to ask some interesting questions. And that's all what the group works on defining together. And so there's one keyboard, one screen, one mouse, one problem. We all just discuss. Keyboard moves around so everybody gets touches, everybody gets a sense of things. So this is something that I've been inviting other folks from the Heartland community to do different projects on. I do a couple of different tools. So just to get a quick sense of hands to see where I can get the most bodies Who would be interested in an Excel session? Medium? Yeah, cool. But it is a workforce. That's cool. That's cool. Who would be interested in an introduction to R as a programming language? Couple, James. Yeah, cool. Who would be interested in intermediate or advanced R? Well, same people. That's. Who would be interested in mapping software, specifically QGIS? Okay, let's hang out and try QGIS. So come find me up by the front. We all break out. I'll be standing here. I'll look like this.
Dolphin tank.
Hi everyone. So everyone's doing metaphors tonight. Our metaphor is a dolphin tank. So we're not a shark tank. We're not mean. We're not out to get you. We're friendly and we're here to help you develop your ideas. So if you're brand new to Hack Night, I recommend the 101 session first, but that is short, and then you can come visit Dolphin Tank if you have an idea or you want to kind of develop something. Come see us. We'll be one of these rooms.
FOIA workshop.
Hey, so one of the things that FOIA, which is the Freedom of Information Act, can do for you is if the government doesn't feel like giving you something, it still has to give it to you if you ask it by citing this law. It's that simple. It's like a cheat code, right? So one of the FOIAs that got my career some attention is this Laquan McDonald video. I helped release that. And so when they were delaying on that video, they were like, well, we just have to get approval. We're just waiting on approval. So we can't give it to you yet. I just thought, well, who are you waiting on approval for? Like, you are the last line of defense here. Like, it's your decision, Ms. FOIA officer. And so then I filed another FOIA, and I said, who are you getting approval for? And she had to say, the mayor's office. And so, like, this is the kind of stuff that sometimes happens. Like, they run it past politicians on occasion. So, if you ever think you might want to ask for something that a politician might not want to give you, you can come talk to me afterward. I guess I'll probably be right around here.
Access to justice.
So we are working on, we want to find ways to help technology, help people avoid technical violations on parole. And we have a couple of projects in the pipeline, a web development project possibly coming up, maybe a hackathon. But today is a quieter day. We're just going back over our research, looking for ways to share other things we've been reading, eventually going to be sharing updates. So if this is something that you're interested in, today might be a good day to kind of get up to speed. Or if you haven't been in a while, it might be a good day to catch up. We'll be in the cafeteria.
Beach water quality. Anybody here for beach water quality?
Yeah. So the beaches in Chicago have some amount of E. coli in them. The Chicago Park District likes to know how much. Unfortunately, the test to say how much is in there takes about 18 hours to run. So if you want to shut the beaches down today, because there's a lot of E. coli in it, then you have to have your predictive model. So the EPA has a predictive model. We don't think it performs that well, and we want to do better. So this group is working to build a better model. We'll be meeting in the high-5 room, which is down that way in month 8.
Cool. Black Tech Mecca. Anybody here from Black Tech Mecca? Going once? Cool.
They're usually already in Greektown. Maybe you should announce it and then say
Yeah.
They got canceled today, actually, like, they got canceled.
Education.
Hi, I'm Josh. I don't really have any projects for our education group tonight, but if you're interested in talking about education data or having ideas for projects, come find me. I'm going to hang out with the other education group.
Teach Tech Task Force.
That's us, that's me. So I'm one part of the Teach Tech Task Force, and one thing that we're working on is an ethical issue map. So for a bit of context, the Board of Education in the city of Chicago Public Schools recently
requesting that everybody has to take 1 unit of computer science by the time they graduate, starting with freshman this fall. This means that there are a lot of teachers around the district and schools in general that are ramping up this ability to give everybody a computer science course. So this is happening at the high school level as well as the elementary level, because people are preparing students for what they see in high school. And what we're creating is a tool to connect new, especially new CS educators with curriculum and lessons that are out there, they're online, great, but are not well organized and optimized to how teachers search for things. Like, teachers need to know how long does this take? Do I need to learn things in order to teach this? And what standards does this material fit? What assessments does this provide for my students? So these are all questions that we're going to try to answer with this app. So we're developing a database of online lessons that contains that information so that's what we provided. And we've created a prototype of our app, and we're looking at user testing. So we're looking for people to user testing. We're looking for people to help our backend content talk to each other and display this information together. Yeah, we're looking at Rails and uses pretty common interface tools. So we're going to be meeting up in these focus rooms.
Chicago nursing home search.
All right, nursing home time. Chicago has 90-some nursing homes. A couple of dozen of them are very nice. There's another couple dozen that are nightmarish, urine-soaked houses of ours. So we have put together a map that displays the quality of the nursing homes. And tonight we're going to play around with it. I'll be in one of the little rooms back there if you would like to mess around with it too.
New rule, Joel announces all breakout groups. Modeling pension reform.
Come back to follow. So for the past 2 years, our incredible group has been working on various models, trying to understand the Illinois pension system, the roots of its crisis, various ways of addressing it. And last week, we took advantage of a very quiet night with 3 of the longest serving members of the group were together. And we started looking at different approaches to this problem. We're going to be discussing tonight perhaps a modest proposal that we realized that the Illinois system has 2 tiers. There's like people who are hired after a certain date are on tier 2, which is about the cheapest system we can legally get away with without having to put everyone on Social Security. And once all the tier 1 employees die, all we have is these tier 1 or tier 2 employees who are quite cheap. And so maybe the only answer is just raise taxes, pay off the debt, and get on with our lives, which is probably too simple for politicians to deal with. So we're going to start talking tonight about what our group is doing. We may be focusing on some visualizations, analysis of tax and paying down this debt. So it should be an interesting day. We're going to be
Cool. Mapping the demand for better transit. Anybody here from that group?
Well, I'm first going to stop off and talk to Dolphin a little bit on another project. But is anybody else here? Martin? So we're talking about stuck on buses on Lake Shore Drive. There's probably got traffic on it. We've been working out how to look at how transit could be better served in Chicago. Trying to get together what are the ridership patterns, number of people on buses at different places at different times. Relate that to the number of buses and services that are being provided, and then contrast that with some of the significant inhibitors going on with big traffic. So after I'm done with Dolphin Tank, I'll be around.
And last but not least, Ride With Me.
Ride With Me is in a like quiescent phase. We worked really hard for many months, and we have something in version 1.0 of what we call a point-to-point peer-to-peer transportation solution for youth that helps young people find the opportunities to reach them. We're currently in a phase where we're doing some user testing. Community members who might host events but more exciting, we're working with potential partner organizations that could continue development of the app into the future and integrate it into some existing learning platforms. So there's some exciting stuff going on, but no active stuff here at Shy Hackney. If you'd like to learn more about what it does, what we're doing, please come see me. That's what I get.
So if none of these oh, it's not. Oh, go for it.
Alright, I'm PBR. We are personalized bike routing, so we're working right now on the beta part of it, which is where you can download our app. We have a beta version for Android, we have a release version for iOS, and you can download your bicycle and measure pavement quality. We're also in talks with some people at Report who are making a stress map and would like to bring this to the city. So really the big thing we need for that is just people to install it. If you have iOS, you can do that. We also need people to help us out with outreach. Once we have those three sets of data, we're going to put it into a routing engine so you can find the next routes. Talk to me if you're interested about any of that.
Sorry about that. So if none of those 15 things sounded interesting, if you'd like to start your own breakout group, raise your hand and talk about your group. Going once.
Hi guys, so I'm from the University of Chicago and I'm also working with so we are working with Network 9, so the biggest public allies in CPS. So this idea is that within Network 9, which covers Hyde Park, Washington Park, Bronzeville, near those areas, a lot of these students are below the poverty line and don't have a lot of access to resources, specifically regarding physical health, mental health, homework help, etc. So really we're just aiming to create a simple map that we can give out to principals and everything, and everyone who will need it. And Derek Eater, who cannot be here, has also made a template that we're using. So we're just looking for people to help out on that. We will be right around here.
That's another, yes.
Yeah, so we are working on a Twitter bot, now tentatively named Tweetable Moments. Naive or ignorant people ask the same several questions to people on Twitter. This Twitter bot is preloaded with curricula of tweets that can be automatically sent to that person to kind of call them into being more educated on a specific subject. Looking for people who are Python or Django skilled, or also people who are interested in developing content for that Twitter bot. And we'll be right here.
Awesome. Other suggestions for breakout groups? Going once, going twice. All right, ready, break. How you doing? Knowing the switch.